Hey now, welcome to America's leading Formula One podcast. I'm Brian Saperstein. This is Rob Vale, and we are at the dirty side of the track. Rob, what are we doing this week?
This week, we are going to be doing our crash course into Formula One. For all those new listeners, hopefully something to help educate them so when they're watching the races, things make sense. And for the veterans out there, it'll be ammunition for them to poke fun at us when we make lots and lots of mistakes, and they can revel in pointing that out to us. So really looking forward to this.
So our next topic, moving on, Formula One cars versus Indy cars. What's the difference? A lot of people talk about the comparison. There are videos out there you can find that talk about it, but let's hit it quickly so you guys understand really what some of the differences are. First of all, Indy, right? Indy cars have two engine providers, Honda and Chevy. In F1, there are four, and we'll talk about what those are in a separate video when we look at the teams. In terms of chassis, what I find interesting is all IndyCar is one common chassis from Dallara, whereas F1, each team makes their own and buys their own. And there's a huge difference in horsepower output. So Indy cars are around 550 to 700. It's not a precise measure that's shared because it's a competitive advantage for teams to not know what another team may do as they tune their cars. But F1 is closer to 1,000 horsepower. So it's a significant difference for F1 cars. However, you may say, why don't F1 cars go like 1,000,000 miles an hour faster? Why isn't it so different? Indy cars allow for major changes in aero, just the aerodynamics, the kits, the cars that they take to each circuit. You may know that like the Indy 500 is an oval. It just goes around and around. And I'm not going to be the guy on here just turning left as people do for NASCAR. I'm not going to do that. But when then Indy will go somewhere else, like Road America, a good example, one of my favorite sort of more road type, even though it's not a road type courses with lefts and rights and small and large turns. Indy changes the aero dramatically, whereas in F1, the aero is pretty much the same in place for all year. Now they can tweak it, the size of the wings, a few other things, but very minimal. So in this case, on like a super speed oval, Indy hits 240 miles an hour, whereas when you see F1 in a high-speed circuit, it's really around 220, 225.
Oh,
slow. I mean, as I mentioned, my friend got a ticket the other day. It was about 225. He was in a school.
I have got to take or give an apology, to the guys I live with over here now in the US, is that coming from the UK, there is a kind of a misguided perception that in all IndyCar is left turn only, just like NASCAR. It just doesn't get any coverage, so you just kind of think, well, why do they just like driving in circles all the time? But yeah, I've seen a few since I've been here on the TV. Actually, it's more Formula One like when you see not the super circuit, the ovals, right, like you say, but the other ones are kind of it's comparable.
Road America in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, just north of here, Chicago, in the Sheboygan Kohler area, is a beautiful course. You can actually go do a sunset cruise in your own car there. Not that I'm plugging it. They're not a sponsor either. But, and then, what's interesting is a few other quick things. Indy cars refuel during the race, whereas F1 cars stopped doing that years ago for a variety of reasons, safety and just a strategy component. So that's a big difference. And if you want to try to kind of compare apples to apples, and it's hard to do. Most recently, there was a comparison in 2006 when both championships visited Montreal, sort of that man-made island outside of the city, which is a really cool race course. So a Lola Ford Cosworth IndyCar set a fastest lap that day of 1 minute, 20 seconds, whereas the F1 race that year, Fernando Alonso, the fastest lap in a Renault at a 1 minute 14. So again, acknowledging that on a straight or in a straight line or even on a super speed oval, IndyCar is going to take it. But when you start adding aero and you start adding lefts, rights of different sizes, as Kimmy would say, hairpins. Oh, no, sorry. That wasn't Kimmy. That was my friend Antonio yelling at Kimmy, hairpin. It's 6 seconds a lap faster on a minute 20. So that's a big difference. And the last thing I'll say is I mentioned this briefly in a different episode. IndyCar's aero team, Pato O'Ward, took a ride in his sister team's McLaren F1 car. And after the session, he joked his neck hurt so bad that he needed to put a pad in the cockpit for his helmet to lean against. And Lando Norris made fun of him. He just had the G-force of the left and the right was so much he couldn't keep up with it. So big difference from an IndyCar, successful IndyCar driver to go to F1. he just really struggled with the difference. It was a big eye opener for me on the difference between Indy and F1.